For 23 years, I've kept what happened in my grandmother's house locked behind my teeth. But some stories don't stay buried. I pray someone believes me. I pray someone understands what I'm about to tell you happened in the fall of 2025, because I'm living it still, and it hasn't let go. My name is Delaney, and I live in Stillwater, Oregon. Population 4,200, the kind of town where everyone waves, but nobody waves back. I inherited my grandmother's house last October after she passed at 94, and for 2 months I lived comfortably in her space, surrounded by her crocheted blankets and the smell of her lavender sachets. She left me everything: the oak furniture, the faded wallpaper, the silence of a home that had watched generations grow up and move away. What she didn't leave me was a warning. No one told me what was waiting in the basement, hidden beneath years of dust and deliberate forgetting. I found the freezer in her basement 3 weeks after moving in, buried under old sheets, a broken lamp, and what looked like a stack of newspapers from the Clinton administration. It was a white Frigidaire chest freezer from the 1980s, covered in grime and water stains, the kind of appliance that belonged in a murder documentary or a true crime podcast about evidence being hidden. I needed a freezer for the elk meat my buddy Jake kept promising me from his hunting trip in the Cascade Mountains, so I cleaned it out, let it run for a few days to make sure the compressor still worked, and hauled it upstairs to the attached garage. It hummed along nicely for almost a month before I noticed the sound. It wasn't the compressor. That was a steady, mechanical rhythm I'd gotten used to, like the heartbeat of some frozen giant sleeping inside the box. This was different. A faint scraping, like fingernails dragging slowly across the bottom of the metal, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. It only happened at night, and only when I stood right next to it, close enough to feel the cold radiating through my shirt. I assumed it was something shifting inside, maybe ice expanding or a loose part vibrating against the walls of the cabinet. I checked the interior and found nothing but empty shelves and that cold, sterile smell that chest freezers always have, like frozen meat and old plastic. But the sound kept coming back, and it started happening more often, 3 times a week, then every night, then sometimes twice in one night. I put my ear against the side of the freezer and heard it clearly, a slow, deliberate scratching from deep within the machine, a rhythm that almost sounded like Morse code but wasn't, something trying to communicate from inside the walls of the appliance. That's when I decided to look closer. I pulled everything out, emptied the interior completely, and ran my hands along the bottom liner, feeling for any imperfection or seam that might explain what was happening. My fingers found a seam, a line in the floor of the freezer that shouldn't have been there, almost invisible unless you were looking for it, unless you were touching for it. I pressed on it, and the entire bottom panel lifted with a soft click, revealing a hidden compartment that smelled like old electronics and something else I couldn't name, something sweet and chemical and deeply wrong. Underneath, wrapped in a black cloth that felt like it had been handled many times, was a small camcorder. God help me, there was a camcorder hidden in my own inheritance, and I had no idea why. The camcorder was a Sony DCR-SR85 from the mid-2000s, small and boxy with a flip-out screen that still worked despite its age. The battery was completely dead, but I found the original charger in a drawer in my grandmother's kitchen, the kind of charger that had wires coming out of it like arteries, and I plugged it in and waited. The indicator light blinked amber for almost an hour before turning green, and when it did, I felt like I was opening a door that should have stayed closed. My hands weren't shaking yet, I was more curious than scared, thinking my grandmother had hidden something valuable, or maybe an old family video she wanted kept private. Maybe a recording of my grandfather before he passed, or some footage from a family reunion that predated everyone having smartphones. I flipped the screen open and hit play. The first file was labeled March 2019. The footage showed my living room, from an angle I recognized as the corner near the bookshelf, the same corner where I kept my grandmother's collection of Reader's Digest books that she had never thrown away. I could see the couch, the window, the pattern of the carpet, the way the light came through the curtains in the late afternoon. The timestamp in the corner confirmed it was from 6 years ago, long before she died, long before I ever moved into this house. I watched myself walk through the frame. I was getting a glass of water, and I had no idea I was being recorded, no idea my grandmother had turned her home into a surveillance state with me as the subject. My jaw tightened. Someone had set this camera up in my grandmother's house and filmed me without permission. And that someone was my grandmother, the woman who had taught me to pray before meals and had given me a Bible for my 16th birthday. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the second file, labeled November 2019. It started the same way. My living room, my couch, my life. But this time, the footage captured me sleeping on that very couch, and something was standing over me. Something that moved like a person, but felt like a nightmare, and I couldn't breathe when I saw it. I prayed right there in my grandmother's living room, hands trembling over the small screen, asking God to explain what I was seeing. But no explanation came, only more questions. The figure in the video was tall and thin, wearing a dark hoodie with the hood pulled up so only the chin was visible. A chin that looked pale and smooth and utterly wrong in the way it caught the light. It stood absolutely still, watching me sleep for 47 full seconds, counting each one on the timestamp as my chest rose and fell in unconscious rhythm, before slowly reaching down and adjusting the blanket I had draped over myself. The movement was careful, deliberate, almost tender, and that tenderness was what made it horrifying, what made my stomach turn and my skin crawl with a revulsion I couldn't explain. Whoever this was, they weren't there to hurt me. They were there to take care of me, to watch over me like a guardian or a parent. And that made it so much worse, because it meant my grandmother had cultivated something in this house that went beyond paranoia and entered the territory of obsession, of possession, of a love that had curdled into something monstrous and sacred at the same time. I paused the footage and stared at the frozen image of my own sleeping face, at this unknown person leaning over me with a tenderness that felt like violation, and I felt a crawling sensation spread across my skin like insects marching in formation. I checked the metadata on all the files. There were 17 videos total, spanning from March 2019 to September 2023. 4 years of footage taken in my grandmother's house. 4 years of my life reduced to surveillance footage. Some showed her in the kitchen, puttering around with her recipes and her wooden spoons. Some showed her in the backyard, sitting in her favorite bench and staring at nothing. All of them showed me, coming and going, eating dinner, watching television, living my life like a lab specimen being observed, like a subject in an experiment I hadn't consented to. My grandmother had been 91 when this started. She had been sharp as a tack, making her own doctor's appointments, driving to the store every week, maintaining the house on her own with the precision of a general running a military operation. There's no way she didn't know the camera was there. There's no way she didn't understand what she was doing to me, to my privacy, to my sense of safety in the only place that should have been safe. I drove to my mother's house that same night, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel of my truck, praying the whole way that she would have answers, that she would tell me I was misunderstanding something, that there was a reasonable explanation for why my dead grandmother had been filming me sleeping like some kind of stalker with a family connection. I confronted her with the cameras, showed her the footage on my phone, watched her face go through confusion and recognition, and something that looked almost like relief, as if a burden had been lifted that she hadn't known she was carrying. She didn't seem surprised. She told me that Grandma had always been paranoid about break-ins ever since a cousin of hers had been robbed in the 1980s, that she had asked the family to check in on me when I moved into the house, that she was worried about the neighborhood going downhill now that the Hendersons had moved out and the Martinez place had been sold to some people from California who didn't seem to care about property values. She just wanted to make sure you were safe, my mother said, her voice soft and rehearsed, the way she sounded when she was defending someone she knew was in the wrong but couldn't admit it. She didn't trust the neighborhood. She never trusted anyone after what happened to Aunt Carol in 1987. But that didn't explain why she had been filming me sleeping. That didn't explain the tenderness in the way the figure had touched me, adjusting my blanket with a gentleness that felt like an act of intimacy, like a violation disguised as comfort. That didn't explain the months and months of footage showing me in my most vulnerable moments, unconscious and defenseless and utterly unaware that I was being watched, studied, cataloged like an animal in a zoo or a patient in an institution. That didn't explain the files labeled with my name, the notes my grandmother had apparently been keeping about my sleep patterns and my habits, and the times I seemed to be having nightmares, the way she had been monitoring me like a project she was determined to complete. I drove back to the house that night, unable to sleep, unable to think about anything except the violation I had discovered in my own inheritance, the betrayal wrapped in the smell of lavender and the comfort of memory. I went straight to the basement when I got back, standing in the cold concrete space with its single bare bulb and its smell of earth and old wood, and I stared at the freezer for a long time before opening it again, running my fingers along the edges of the false bottom like I was checking for a pulse, like I was looking for evidence of something that was still alive. The false bottom was still there, the hidden compartment my fingers had found by accident. But there was something else now. There was a piece of paper, folded in half, sitting on the bottom of the freezer where nothing had been before. And I swear to God, I had checked that compartment 3 times already that day. I swear to God that paper was not there when I left, but it was there now, and my hand shook as I reached for it. I unfolded it with trembling hands, and the words were in my grandmother's spidery cursive, the same handwriting I remembered from birthday cards and grocery lists and notes she had left on the counter when I visited. You're not safe when you're awake. That's when they come. The freezer keeps you hidden. The freezer keeps you mine. I read it 3 times, then a 4th. Then I dropped it like it was burning, but the burn followed me home that night, and every night since, a coldness that lives in my chest now, a knowledge that cannot be unknown. I threw the freezer away the next morning. I disconnected it, dragged it to the curb, and called a junk removal service to haul it away before noon, before I could talk myself out of it, before I could let myself think about what I was abandoning or who might want it back. I deleted every file on both camcorders without watching them again, scrubbing through the footage like I was erasing a crime scene, erasing my own history, erasing the evidence of whatever my grandmother had been building in this house for 4 years. I told myself it was over, that I had cut the thread connecting me to whatever my grandmother had been doing, that I could seal up the basement and pretend the house was just a house and move on with my life like a normal person in a normal town, living a normal existence. But that night I woke up at 3 a.m. to a sound coming from the garage, a sound that was impossible because the freezer was gone. I had gotten rid of it. I had thrown it away with my own hands and watched the truck carry it down the street and disappear around the corner. Yet the sound was unmistakable. That same slow, deliberate scratching, like fingernails dragging across metal. The same sound that had started everything. The same rhythm that had drawn me to the false bottom, and the cameras, and the note that still lived in my nightstand drawer because I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. I crept to the garage, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, and I opened the door with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, and the freezer was gone. In its place, sitting on the concrete floor where it had been, was a small wooden box I had never seen before. Dark oak with brass hinges that gleamed in the dim light from the house. The kind of box that looked like it belonged in an antique shop, or a museum, or a room in a house where something terrible had happened and the evidence had been preserved. I opened it with the kind of dread you feel when you know something bad is waiting for you. But you open it anyway, because the alternative is to close it and pretend you never saw it. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't pretend anymore, not after everything my grandmother had put me through. Inside was a new camcorder, a modern one, sleek and black and fully charged. The kind of camera you can buy at Best Buy or order from Amazon with next-day delivery. The kind of camera that doesn't look like evidence of a crime, but absolutely is. The screen showed a live feed of my bedroom. I was looking at myself, standing in my own doorway, holding the box, and the timestamp read 3:17 a.m., the exact minute I had opened the garage door, the exact moment I had discovered what someone had left for me. I looked up at the corner of my bedroom ceiling through the open door of the garage, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape, like it knew something I didn't. There was a tiny lens, no bigger than a pinhead, glittering in the shadows near the smoke detector, and I had never noticed it before, had never thought to look, had never imagined that someone could be watching me in the one place I thought was safe. In the corner of the screen, just barely visible, was a figure standing in my hallway behind me. The same tall, thin silhouette from my grandmother's footage, wearing the same dark hoodie, standing absolutely still like a statue or a sentinel, or something that was waiting for me to understand what it wanted. And I prayed then. I prayed harder than I have ever prayed in my life, asking God to show me what was real and what was not, because at that moment I couldn't tell the difference, and I wasn't sure it mattered anymore. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they want. I don't know if my grandmother created them or recruited them, or if they were something she found, something she summoned, something that had been waiting in the walls of that house long before she ever moved in, sleeping in the dark spaces between the studs and the wiring like a tenant who never paid rent but never left either. Every night now, I wake up at the exact same time, 3:17 a.m., every single night, like clockwork, like something has set an alarm inside my body and doesn't care that I need to sleep, doesn't care that I need to function at my job where I've started making mistakes because I'm running on fumes and terror, doesn't care that I'm slowly unraveling from the inside out like a sweater being pulled by an invisible hand. And every night, the scratching sound is there, coming from somewhere inside the walls, from somewhere underneath the floor, from somewhere I can't find and can't escape and can't even properly identify anymore, because the boundaries between what is real and what is watched have completely dissolved in this house, in this town, in this version of my life that I'm no longer sure I chose. Lord, give me the strength to understand what I'm dealing with here, because I am drowning in a mystery that has no bottom. And every time I think I've reached the floor, I find another door, another camera, another piece of my grandmother's obsession that she left for me like breadcrumbs leading into a forest I was never supposed to enter. I found 3 more cameras last week, hidden in the light fixtures and behind the bathroom mirror and inside the vent in the hallway where the air flows in and out like breath. And each one was positioned with the same precision my grandmother had shown in her original setup, the same care, the same attention to the angles of my life. And I knew with absolute certainty that she hadn't installed these, that someone else had been here while I was at work or at the store or doing whatever normal human activities I used to take for granted. They had moved through my home like they belonged there, like they had always belonged there. And God forgive me, but I started to wonder if they did, if they had always been here, if my grandmother had simply been the one who gave them permission to stay. I think she's still watching. I think she'll always be watching. I think about that note every night. The words, "The freezer keeps you mine," burning a hole through every rational thought. Because she was right. She was always right. And I understand now the freezer wasn't just a hiding place. It was a promise she made to whatever she let grow in the basement all those decades. And I inherited that promise the moment I took the keys. Lord, I pray for the strength to leave, but I also pray to understand why I can't. Why every morning I walk through these rooms, checking corners and ceilings, where something watches me back with her patience and her certainty that she owns me, that this house was built to contain us both. I've started hearing footsteps in the basement when no one's home, seeing shadows in camera feeds, and I know now that when she said mine, she meant possession, something that belongs to the house forever and can never leave. I think eventually I'll understand why she chose me, and by then, I pray it won't be too late, because I'm becoming part of this house too, my edges softening, my sleep deepening, my dreams filled with scratching from everywhere and nowhere. I don't know if I'm being haunted or adopted, but I know I can't stay, even though I know I will, because whoever watches made it clear I was never meant to leave. The freezer was never just a freezer. My grandmother was never just a grandmother. This house was never just a house. It was a nursery, and I was the baby. And they've been watching me my whole life, waiting for me to understand what it means to be loved like a thing instead of a person.